Choosing to stay in music was unclear. Paul McCartney, John Lennon, George Harrison, and Ringo Starr changed popular music and culture, creating a lasting legacy. After breaking up in 1970, the Beatles left an indelible mark. After the Beatles broke up, McCartney had a successful solo career, proving his flexibility. What caused the band's breakup has been a mystery for decades. Paul McCartney recently disclosed who terminated the Beatles, solving one of music's greatest mysteries. Before diving into that epiphany, McCartney's life and band path must be examined. Sir James Paul McCartney was born in Liverpool's Walton district on June 18, 1942. His talent and determination helped him become a Beatles legend. McCartney was raised in a modest, hard-working family. Father Jim McCartney was a cotton dealer and jazz pianist, while Mother Mary was a midwife. Despite financial difficulties, the McCartneys lived with music and grit. His father introduced Paul to music by encouraging piano instruction. This early music established the framework for a great career. McCartney met John Lennon at a church festival as a teenager, changing popular music. They became close over their love of rock and roll and songwriting. McCartney joined Lennon's Quarrymen, which became the Beatles with Harrison and Starr. The band reached new heights thanks to McCartney and Lennon's songwriting partnership, one of the best in history. The Beatles' early 1960s fame was stratospheric. Their catchy melodies, creative compositions, and compelling performances charmed spectators. McCartney's singing, bass, and songwriting skills helped the band succeed. He combined lyrical depth with melodic brilliance in Hey Jude, Let It Be, and Yesterday. The Beatles changed fashion, culture, and social standards beyond music. Their influence went beyond music, making them cultural icons. However, popularity, creative differences, and personal difficulties eventually broke the band. The Beatles dissolved in 1970, leaving fans devastated and the world wondering what happened. After the breakup, McCartney formed Wings and released many hit albums. He was haunted by the Beatles despite his success. McCartney and his former bandmates hinted at the breakup's causes over the years, but McCartney recently addressed the matter. McCartney has stated in interviews that the band's disintegration was caused by a variety of factors. He cited the difficulty of managing their business, the death of manager Brian Epstein, and the group's growing personal and artistic disagreements. McCartney also noted that John Lennon was the first to officially leave the band, which led to its dissolution. McCartney remains a musical and cultural figure after the separation. His Beatles and solo work shaped the music industry. McCartney's ability to reinvent himself, dedication to his craft, and enthusiasm for music have made him one of the best artists ever. McCartney's life and career are marked by skill, resilience, and creativity. Music can inspire and change, as McCartney demonstrated from his Liverpool childhood to his global superstardom with the Beatles and beyond. The Beatles and Paul McCartney will forever be part of modern music history as we commemorate their legacy. Parental resilience and dedication shaped Paul McCartney's early existence. His mother, Mary, was a successful nurse and midwife, providing a secure and supportive home for young Paul. His father, Jim McCartney, worked in sales before becoming a lathe turner during World War II. McCartney attended Stockton Wood Road Primary School and the Liverpool Institute after passing the 11+ test. He made a lifetime connection with George Harrison on school buses and shared a passion for music. McCartney excelled academically and became interested in music at Liverpool Institute. Early on, Paul's lyrical bass playing and exceptional vocal range stood out. His cooperation with John Lennon defined the Beatles' sound and set a songwriting standard. Mary McCartney died abruptly on October 31, 1956, after breast cancer surgical complications, like Lennon. Since Lennon's mother had died 2 years previously, the two future Beatles had a strong bond. Jim McCartney, a musician, shaped Paul's musical tastes. Jim Mack, who led Jim Mack's jazz band in the 1920s, kept an upright piano in their home and encouraged Paul and his younger brother to play music. Jim recommended formal piano lessons for Paul, but the young McCartney opted to learn by ear, demonstrating his musical talent. Paul's musical path changed when his father gave him a nickel-plated trumpet for his 14th birthday. Paul soon became interested in rock and roll. He switched from trumpet to Zenith acoustic guitar After being influenced by Little Richard and the American rhythm and blues movement, Paul first played right-handed guitar, but a Slim Whitman poster inspired him to restring his guitar for left-handed playing. This adaptation started McCartney's successful guitar and songwriting career. At a talent competition, Paul performed Little Richard's Long Tall Sally and set the stage for his future triumph. McCartney wrote his first tunes while practicing the Zenith guitar, setting the groundwork for his Beatles success. How did McCartney join the Beatles? He met John Lennon at a church feast, starting that voyage. After discovering one another's talent and enthusiasm for music, they created a strong musical partnership. After performing in Lennon's Quarrymen, they formed the Beatles with George Harrison and Ringo Starr. McCartney revolutionized the Beatles. His creative bass lines, vocal range, and compositional skills shaped the band's sound and popular music. After the band broke up in 1970, McCartney thrived as a solo artist, cementing his legend. Paul McCartney is talented, resilient, and innovative. From his humble beginnings in Liverpool to his global fame, McCartney's story shows music's transformational power and his lasting impact. At the St. Peter's Church Hall Fete in Woolton on July 6, 1957, Paul McCartney met John Lennon and the Quarrymen, changing his life at 15. The Quarrymen mixed rock and roll, skiffle, jazz, blues, and folk. The band swiftly recruited McCartney as a rhythm guitarist due to his excellent musical talent. This started a tremendous collaboration. George Harrison became lead guitarist in 1958, while Stuart Sutcliffe, Lennon's art school classmate, became bassist in 1960. After these additions, the Beatles' core lineup formed. The band changed names multiple times before becoming the Beatles in August 1960. After this decision, they hired drummer Pete Best and traveled to Hamburg, Germany. This time in Hamburg helped them perfect their sound and bond. After forming their lineup, the Beatles became famous. Stuart Sutcliffe departed the band in 1961, and McCartney became the bassist. His passion for his new role became apparent as the band explored new music. The Beatles made their first professional recording in Hamburg, supporting Tony Sheridan on My Bonnie as the Beat Brothers. Brian Epstein, who became their manager in January 1962, heard this recording and shaped their future. Epstein's management helped the Beatles become famous. Under his direction, the band improved their image and performance, culminating to their historic ascension in music. McCartney's intelligence, Lennon's creativity, Harrison's guitar talents, and Ringo Starr's drumming forged a synergy that changed popular music forever. Ringo Starr replaced Pete Best as the Beatles' drummer later that year, before their October 1962 breakthrough with Love Me Do. Beatlemania began in the UK and expanded to the US. Within this hysteria, McCartney's charm and musical talent earned him the nickname the Cute Beatle. He and Lennon wrote a string of hits that defined the Beatles' early success, including I Saw Her Standing There, She Loves You, I Want to Hold Your Hand, and Can't Buy Me Love. With the string quartet accompanied melancholy ballad Yesterday, McCartney showed his flexibility by August 1965. Yesterday was the Beatles' first song to incorporate classical music, and it was widely covered. Rubber Soul showed McCartney's growing influence in the band. He played instruments, arranged, produced, and directed music in addition to writing. The album moved from the Beatles' pop sound to more nuanced and introspective subjects, with songs like In My Life, showing McCartney and Lennon's creative maturity. Revolver, 1966, showed McCartney's talent with compositions like Eleanor Rigby. The album's experimental approach and dense lyrics foreshadowed the Beatles' future developments. McCartney released his first solo album after the Beatles' 1966 US tour. He scored the UK film The Family Way. McCartney provided concepts that George Martin turned into 13 variants. The soundtrack didn't sell well, although McCartney won an Ivor Novello for Best Instrumental Theme. McCartney advised the Beatles to start a daring new project to revitalize their music after touring. Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band, rock's first concept album, realized this aim. The band began experimenting during Sgt. Pepper's recording in November 1966. Tracks like A Day in the Life, which featured a 40-piece orchestra conducted by McCartney and Martin, showed the album's ambition. The Beatles released Strawberry Fields Forever, dual A-side single, in February 1967 and the album in June during this creative period. After Brian Epstein's sad death in August 1967, Paul McCartney took on a larger position in the band. McCartney gradually took over as the Beatles' leader and business manager from John Lennon. McCartney oversaw the ambitious television film Magical Mystery Tour, which had many logistical obstacles. The McCartney-directed film garnered negative reviews, but its music was a commercial success, distributed in many formats, and immediately became a hit. After McCartney's song, the Beatles created Yellow Submarine, an animated film. The July 1968 film was lauded for its groundbreaking visuals and music. However, by late 1968, band tensions emerged, especially during the White Album recording. These disputes lasted during the 1969 Let It Be sessions, which were filmed. McCartney lamented Epstein's departure and spoke about the group's direction and relationships. Despite band disagreements, McCartney and producer George Martin advocated for a symphonic style on Abbey Road, the Beatles' final album. In October 1969, a weird rumor circulated that McCartney had perished in a car accident years earlier. In November 1969, McCartney and his family appeared on Life magazine's cover, reassuring fans that he was alive and well. By the next year, the Beatles had disbanded. "Who broke up the band?" McCartney confessed years later. Paul McCartney continued Wings following the breakup. McCartney was depressed after the Beatles broke up, but found peace and purpose in his new songs. Linda, Paul McCartney's wife, comforted him at this difficult time. Her constant encouragement and appreciation for his songwriting elevated him. McCartney wrote, "Maybe I'm Amazed," a touching homage to Linda's emotional support to honor her. In 1970, McCartney released his first solo album, McCartney. The album topped U.S. charts, launching his solo career. The next year, McCartney, Linda, and drummer Denny Sewell released Ram, another critically praised album that hit #1 in the UK and the top 5 in the US. McCartney, Linda, and Sewell established Wings in September 1971. Wings began their first tour in 1972 with guitarist Henry McCullough, gaining confidence and preparing for their European tour. Wings and McCartney's solo work dominated the 1972 Wings over Europe tour's 7 weeks and 25 shows. He chose smaller venues with capacities of 3,000 to create an intimate setting that fit the band's changing sound and approach. Wings had their first U.S. #1 with My Love from Red Rose Speedway in March 1973. The band also released Live and Let Die, the James Bond film's theme song, that year. With George Martin, the song won a Grammy for its orchestral arrangement and topped the U.S. charts. After Henry McCullough and Denny Sewell left in 1973, McCartney, Linda, and Denny Laine recorded Band on the Run. This album was the band's first to top the U.S. and UK charts. McCartney and Wings won a Grammy for Best Pop Vocal Performance for the title track. Wings' dynamic sound and chart-topping success endured despite lineup changes, cementing their position in rock history. Wings released several hit albums after Band on the Run. Venus and Mars in 1975 and Wings at the Speed of Sound in 1976 cemented their rock legend. Wings Over the World Tour, a 14-month tour of the UK, Australia, Europe, and the US, began in 1975. The tour concluded in the iconic live triple LP Wings Over America, which captured their global energy and spirit. In 1977, Paul McCartney and Denny Laine's Mull of Kintyre broke UK sales records until 1984. London Town, 1978, and Back to the Egg, 1979, sustained Wings' chart-topping triumph. The 1980 solo album, McCartney II, topped the UK charts and showed McCartney's musical evolution. Wings' last #1 smash, Coming Up, was on the album. After Denny Laine left, McCartney ended Wings in 1981 due to internal disagreements. After Wings, McCartney and Wonder recorded Ebony and Ivory, produced by George Martin, in 1982. This song was McCartney's record-breaking 28th Billboard Hot 100 #1. He recorded The Girl Is Mine from Michael Jackson's Thriller album with him the same year, and Say 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 in 1983. Give My Regards to Broad Street, a 1984 musical, was McCartney's film debut. Although the film garnered mediocre reviews, its soundtrack was popular, reaching #1 in the UK and featuring the US top 10 song No More Lonely Nights. McCartney also composed Spies Like Us for the 1985 film and performed at Live Aid. He recorded Press to Play with Eric Stewart in 1986. He continued his innovation with Back in the USSR in 1988, issued solely in the USSR. McCartney, Marsden, and Johnson performed Ferry Cross the Mersey for the Hillsborough Disaster Appeal Fund in 1989. He collaborated with Elvis Costello on Flowers in the Dirt, starring David Gilmour and Nicky Hopkins. McCartney's first tour in over a decade culminated in a record-breaking show at Maracana Stadium in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, with 184,000 paying fans. This tour's highlights were included on the triple CD Tripping the Live Fantastic. With the Liverpool Oratorio, McCartney and Carl Davis wrote symphonic music for the Royal Liverpool Philharmonic Society in 1991. It topped the UK classical chart despite mixed reviews. He did an acoustic concert for MTV Unplugged that year, resulting in the live CD Unplugged. Starting with Strawberries Ocean Ships Forest in 1993, McCartney and Youth from Killing Joke released 2 electronica albums as The Fireman. In 1993, he released Off the Ground and went on the New World Tour, which produced Paul is Live. McCartney worked on the Beatles anthology from 1994 until 1998. He recorded Beautiful Night with Ringo Starr on drums for his 1997 rock album, Flaming Pie. Standing Stone topped UK and US classical charts the next year, his comeback to classical music. McCartney released Rush's, his second Fireman album, in 1998, and Run Devil Run in 1999. The 1999 Concert for Linda tribute at the Royal Albert Hall featured him. McCartney experimented with electronica on Liverpool Sound Collage with Super Furry Animals and Youth in 2000. A Garland for Linda, an homage to his late wife, included Nova that year. Paul McCartney organized the concert for New York City after the September 11th attacks and released Driving Rain in November 2001. Freedom, a response to the tragedy, was on the album. McCartney's 2002 Driving World Tour featured Rusty Anderson and Brian Ray on guitars, Paul Wickens on keyboards, and Abe Laboriel Jr. on drums. The $126.2 million tour was a hit. The Concert for George, marking George Harrison's first death anniversary, featured McCartney that year. He also headlined the 2005 Super Bowl Tinti Tatuanin halftime show and appeared at the 2002 Super Bowl 26 pregame show. After performing at Live 8 in Hyde Park, McCartney released Chaos and Creation in the Backyard in September 2005. The 2006 classical work XC Cor Meum and 2007 rock album Memory Almost Full followed. Electric Arguments was the Fireman's third experimental album, released in 2008. After a vacation, McCartney returned to touring in 2009, doing over 80 performances and celebrating EMI's digital remastering and the Beatles rock band video game. He released the double live album Good Evening New York City after 3 sold-out Citi Field shows. In 2010, McCartney opened the Consol Energy Center in Pittsburgh and sold out 2 new Yankee Stadium gigs in 2011. He joined with Decca Records in 2011, issued Kisses on the Bottom, and composed Ocean's Kingdom, his first dance soundtrack. He was named Music-Era's Person of the Year and performed at the 54th Grammys. In 2012, McCartney headlined the London 2012 Summer Olympics opening ceremony, closed Queen Elizabeth II's Diamond Jubilee concert, and performed to approximately 100,000 people in Mexico City. In 2012, McCartney performed at the Concert for Sandy Relief and released New in 2013. His performance in Candlestick Park in San Francisco followed his participation in The Night That Changed America, a Grammy tribute to the Beatles, Only One and 4/5 Seconds, performed at the Grammy Awards, were collaborative projects. On Saturday Night Live's 40th anniversary special in 2015, Paul McCartney performed with the Hollywood Vampires and covered Come and Get It. The following year, he released Pure McCartney, a retrospective of his work. His 2018 Billboard 200 topping album Egypt Station continued to influence music and culture. McCartney III, recorded amid COVID-19 lockdowns, earned his first UK #1 solo album since 1989 in December 2020. The album was reinvented in 2021 as McCartney III Imagined. His book, The Lyrics, 1956 to the Present, was well received that year. McCartney performed at Glastonbury Festival as the oldest solo headliner in 2022 after his Got Back tour in the US. His Beatles, Get Back Work, earned him a Primetime Emmy. 1964. Eyes of the Storm, a collection of his Beatlemania photos, was published in 2023. However, Paul McCartney's story goes beyond music. In private, he was a friend, lover, husband, and father. Before discussing the Beatles' breakup, you must know the man behind the famous. McCartney also produced and hosted The Real Buddy Holly Story in 1985 and appeared on The Simpsons in 1995. He made a short Grateful Dead documentary and was the UK's wealthiest musician in 2015 with an estimated £730 million. After meeting Dorothy Rohn at Liverpool's Casbah Club in 1959, McCartney began dating. McCartney advised Rohn on Brigitte Bardot-like attire, makeup, and hairstyles. Despite his frequent letters from Hamburg, McCartney unexpectedly canceled their engagement after Rohn's miscarriage, stating he was free of duty. McCartney met Jane Asher at a Beatles concert in London in April 1963. McCartney moved into Asher's parents' Marylebone home on Wimpole Street after their relationship grew swiftly. They lived together for 2 years until relocating to McCartney's St. John's Wood house in 1966. Throughout these personal and professional milestones, McCartney has achieved greatness and built significant relationships, leaving a legacy as one of the most influential musicians in history. The encounter inspired McCartney's compositions. Yesterday, I Love Her, You Won't See Me, and I'm Looking Through You. Asher discovered McCartney's affair with Francie Schwartz, an American screenwriter who went to London to pitch a Beatles script, ending their engagement. Francie Schwartz moved into Paul McCartney's London house when Jane Asher broke up with him in 1968. Their romance was brief. The McCartney was busily developing the White Album, and band tensions were increasing. After his relationship with Schwartz ended in late 1968, McCartney began dating American photographer Linda Eastman, whom he met at a Georgie Fame concert in London in 1967. Linda was initially drawn to John Lennon, but quickly fell for Paul. They married in March 1969, after nearly postponing it due to a fight the night before. After the Beatles broke up in 1970, they established Wings and endured criticism while working together musically until Linda's 1998 breast cancer death. Paul called their marriage pleasant and sought counseling after her death to deal with shame and imperfection. After Linda's death, McCartney married former model and landmine activist Heather Mills in 2002. They had a daughter, Beatrice Milley, in 2003. Although Mills was often portrayed negatively by the media, lifestyle differences and personal problems strained their marriage, according to reports. Mills's outspokenness and media controversy contrasted with McCartney's quieter public persona, and bitter divorce ended their marriage in 2008. 3 years later, McCartney married Nancy Shevell in a small London civil ceremony. They dated since 2007, when McCartney was married to Mills. Shevell, a transportation company vice president, is younger than McCartney. They met approximately 2 decades prior to their marriage through their Hamptons residences. October 2023 was their 12th wedding anniversary. They love holidays together, including a March 2024 trip to St. Bart's. They enjoy relaxing on the beach and doing health exercises together. Beyond his personal and love life, McCartney has struggled with drugs. In the 1960s, Preludin and Homburg were used to sustain energy during performances, and Bob Dylan introduced cannabis in 1964. McCartney used cannabis in Got to Get You Into My Life. He also used LSD, cocaine, and other substances, but he abandoned cannabis in 2015 to set a good example for his grandchildren. Some aspects of the rock star's life are less controversial. McCartney and Linda visited a farm in 1975 and saw lambs with their moms. This encounter dramatically changed their views on meat ethics. This inspired them to fight for animal rights and ethics. They advocated vegetarianism and kept Linda McCartney Foods GMO-free. McCartney has campaigned against seal hunting, landmines, and more with PETA and the Humane Society. The Make Poverty History movement and fracking opposition were among his humanitarian, environmental, and social causes. McCartney has also donated to many charities through benefit concerts, charity recordings, and personal donations. His global philanthropy includes Aung San Suu Kyi, environmental responsibility, and NHS charity. He advocated for the Tree Register Yearbook in 2024. The burning question: who broke up the Beatles? Many blamed McCartney for the 1970 band breakup. McCartney recently said that John Lennon started the breakup. McCartney described Lennon's separation request to BBC Radio 4's John Wilson. As with the divorce, McCartney and the remaining members had to deal with the repercussions. McCartney sued his comrades to end the Beatles' commercial partnership, but he denied causing it. McCartney thinks his and Yoko Ono's social and political activism shaped Lennon. The pair protested the Vietnam War from Amsterdam and Montreal, with their legendary bed-ins for peace and Beigism. McCartney called the breakup one of his most difficult times, believing the Beatles might have lasted longer without Lennon. Even though they died tragically, the Beatles' unique approach to songwriting, studio production, and culture lives on across generations and genres. Thanks for watching our video. If you like this deep dive into today's topic and want to see more fascinating material, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss a video. We value your feedback, so please leave it below. See you next time for more thoughts and discussions. Keep exploring, learning, and sharing till then. Thanks for joining our community.